Hello, and welcome to Women Speak, a production of the Women's Resource Center in Wayne. I'm your host, Mojdeh Keykhah, and each month I focus on a topic that is of interest to women and the people they care for. This interview is being conducted via Zoom during the Coronavirus Crisis 2021 on MLTV Mainline Network. Today, Women Speak is pleased to have networking guru Jennifer Lynn Robinson, Esquire. Ms. Robinson is the CEO of Purposeful Networking and has expertise in strategic networking, communications, public speaking, and workplace relations. Additionally, Jennifer does motivational speaking centered on the themes of storytelling and resilience, following her own recovery and reinvention after a near-death accident. She gave a TEDx talk on change and disruption in June 2020. Jennifer is a media contributor who has been featured both locally and nationally. Some of her media coverage includes Cheddar, CBS, NBC, PHL 17, Fox, Forbes, The Huffington Post, Thrive Global, Chicago Tribune, and Philadelphia Magazine. She is also a contributor for Entrepreneur Magazine. Jennifer was named Best Networker in 2018 by Philly Current Magazine and a Power Woman in 2017 by Mainline Today. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Haverford College and her law degree from Villanova School of Law. Jennifer, I am excited and honored that you are joining Women Speak today and that we will be talking about networking, especially now in the age of COVID and virtual platforms.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to delve right into the topic of networking and would like to start with the definition of what is networking.
I think that people overcomplicate what networking is, and I would say at its base, it's just building and maintaining relationships.
And for women especially who might have been out of the workforce for a long time, or for women who have been laid off by the COVID-19 economy, could you tell us about how to increase confidence in networking?
I know it's going to sound cliche, but like anything else, you have to learn by doing. So I think if you're not confident in your networking, just start. You have to start and just hope that with practice, it's going to improve. And I guarantee that it will. You'll feel more comfortable. You'll feel more confident. So in this day and age, since we're doing everything virtually, that means finding opportunities, either one-on-one or with organizations, to practice your networking. And I would say if you're somebody that's not comfortable with it, try to start out practicing with people one-on-one, maybe with people that you already have a relationship with, whether that's a closer relationship or more of an acquaintance, somebody that's not a stranger. And take those opportunities to get more comfortable before you get in a setting where maybe you're doing, let's say, a virtual job interview and you won't know the person at all.
And what are the steps in networking effectively, especially now during COVID and with virtual platforms?
There's a lot more to the networking, in my opinion, and the virtual platform. In non-COVID times, I would encourage people to get to an event early, prepare by understanding what the format of the event is. If there's a registration list, connecting with people ahead of time, really learning what the event will involve before you go there in person, so that you feel comfortable when you get there. Obviously, then you want to network while you're there. And then I would say there's a post networking event kind of situation where you would follow up, which is very important. All of that's still important in the virtual setting, but in my mind, in the virtual setting, there's a lot more things to think about. For example, we're here doing this virtual interview, and you have to think about things like lighting and background and audio and how you're coming across in a box. You don't have the same way you can make a first impression and build that rapport with people that you might have in person. Behind you, what's going to be a conversation starter, what's going to look too busy, how do you look? There's a lot of things that factor in more, I think, in the virtual setting when you have these limitations that you may not have in person. And that can be stressful, especially if you're not used to networking. All of us have kind of had to get used to this virtual setting in the last year. I know there's a small contingent of people that maybe already did a bunch of Zoom and Skype and meetings and Microsoft Teams because of the nature of their job, or maybe the time zone of the clients and the customers they work with. But for many of us, this last year has sort of been a crash course in how to do all of this online effectively, whether it's job hunting, networking, presentations, or just communicating with people on a daily basis.
And how do you make a good initial impression in networking, especially with Zoom fatigue being a thing now?
Yeah, I think as far as a first impression, what you really want to do is seem interested in what people are saying. So it's not about you, it's about them. It's a good idea to think about questions ahead of time that might just be things that can build rapport easily. Even something as simple as how's your week been going, or what's the best thing to happen to you last week? What are you working on that you're excited about can be a good one, I think. So having those questions prepared that can put you more at ease and open somebody up to having a dialogue and talking about what's important and passionate for them instead of what might be important and passionate for you. Networking is also just about information gathering. So the more you can get someone to open up, the more things you can build on, whether that's from a personal relationship standpoint or later for business, or whether you can refer them somewhere, or you understand their pain points and challenges. So you might be able to help them with whatever services that you offer. So there's a lot that come of just kind of letting somebody talk, right? Hearing their story and what they're passionate about, I think can go a long way. As far as making a good impression for Zoom, and all of these virtual settings, I think it goes back to what we've already talked about with making sure things are good behind you, So trying to limit the disruptions. I know that can be tough. I know a lot of women and people in general out there are working against constraints of, children at home and pets and other disruption. Right before we started here today, I was saying, across the street from me, there's construction going on. There's only so many things we can limit, right? So you can have the best intentions, but at home you are going to have some disruptions. Try to just work within them and just understand that it humanizes you and that everybody else you're networking with is going through the same things. So just kind of try to roll with it as best you can, and just understand that, people are having the same struggle. So it doesn't necessarily take away, but at the same time, if you can minimize that and people can focus more on you and a more simple background, and they don't have problems hearing you and that sort of thing, that's always going to go a long way in making a great first impression.
That humanizing element is a very important point, and to know that everyone is going through the same experience is something that builds confidence in general. I was wondering, what kind of relationship does someone try to create when they're networking?
I think at the base, the relationship you're trying to create is what we hear all the time for networking. You want to develop relationships where there's trust and likability. So it's not so much when you start about the business. Think about the kinds of networking events you went to pre-pandemic and the people that you gravitated towards or you felt you want to continue relationships with. It's generally not the person that comes up to you and says, "Hi, I sell refrigerators and here's why you need one. When are we going to set a meeting so that I can tell you about the 5 different type of refrigerators that we have?" That's kind of the person you would generally shy away from. I guess at its base, you may not need a refrigerator at that time, and they really haven't inquired as to whether you would, right? So that's something to think about. The other thing is, to just approach somebody with a sales pitch like that is off-putting. So whether that's in person or in a virtual forum, you really want to think about how you're approaching people. And, that can go a long way in how you're building a relationship and whether people want to continue the relationship with you at the moment. And then afterwards, when you follow up, is it something where they're going to write you a short email or and say something like, "Thanks for connecting. I hope to see you again, in the next lifetime." Like, not that they would say that, but you know what I mean? Just sort of that blow off. "It was so nice to meet you. I hope our paths cross again." That's not what you want. What you want is somebody to be very interested in setting that next opportunity to talk to you. So whether that's setting a Zoom at this point, since we're still doing so much virtually, or Skype, something of that nature, to have more of a one-on-one get to know you and your business better. If people are comfortable, meeting outside for coffee or something like that. And obviously when we get back to normal, there'll be even more opportunities to carry on the relationship. But I think that initial impression and what you're trying to do is just build that rapport and that connection. So that people want to learn more. I say sometimes it's really not unlike a first date. When and I know it's been a long time for me. I've been married a long time, but when you do go on that first date, it's like a teaser. You have that initial encounter with somebody. Are they going to want to know more? Are they going to want to get to know you after that? Or was it just kind of a nice meeting and they're happy to go their separate ways? Networking is not any different.
I know that many people are looking for a mentor, and the question that I'd like to know more about is, how do you find a mentor through networking that would help you in your job search, in your career? How does that happen?
To me, the biggest mistake people make in trying to find a mentor is that they think the mentor is going to be the end all be all of whatever they're trying to do with their career or professional development. So they look for somebody at their network who maybe is at a very high level, somebody probably doesn't have the time necessarily to be mentoring a lot of people, and maybe would, if they did have time, would only be able to offer you maybe, a short conversation or one meeting or something of that nature. And they think, I have to ask them, almost like you're asking somebody to marry them, like, can you be my mentor? And, can you help guide me through the rest of my career? It really doesn't have to be that significant and complicated. I think as you start networking and you build people in your network, you can network with somebody as a mentor in a way that's short-term and beneficial. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that you see somebody who's really on a good path with something you want to do. Like for me, when I started out, maybe there were few people that I really emulated as speakers, and I knew that I wanted to grow my business into a speaking business. So how can they help me? What can they do as far as pointers and tips? Can I have a meeting with them? Maybe it's a one-time meeting where I say, this is the path. I want to be you. In 5 years, I want to be you. So what can you do to help me get to that point? What can you tell me? Where should I be networking? What kinds of opportunities should I be looking for? What was your path like? What pitfalls or challenges did you have that you might help me avoid as I try to go down the same path? So it doesn't have to be something that's necessarily long-term, but I think about those people in your network that can help you with something specific. Is it somebody who's really good at PR, marketing, SEO? What can you do as far as different people in your network who can help mentor you, even if it's a one-time meeting? And I would also say, when you're asking somebody help, even if it's short-term or if it's longer-term, you really want to think about what is best for them. It's not what is best for you. Sometimes people reach out to me for advice and they say, oh, I'd love to talk to you, and this is what I have available. I think we should meet in person, 45 minutes from your house, and it should be at 8:30 in the morning. Well, maybe that's not convenient for me. If I'm helping you, you want to do is see what is convenient for me. So if you're asking somebody to mentor you, you want to ask them things like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer that we meet virtually? Would you like to meet in person? Is a phone call best for you? What days of the week are good for you? What times of day are best for you? Why don't you give me some times that work for you? So it should be all about the other person, since they are doing you a favor.
That sounds like we're coming back to the golden rule. Treat people as you would like to be treated, and that really works in developing relationships. I'm going to move into the social media arena now, and I want to know, how do you use social media sites such as LinkedIn to network?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is definitely, in my mind, the most professional of the networking social media forums for networking. So it's really important that you have a LinkedIn profile. And I know that may sound like a, weird comment to make in this day and age, but I still encounter people who don't have a LinkedIn profile, or who will tell me things like, I have a LinkedIn profile, but I haven't been on it in years. Maybe I can locate it to find it to see what's going on with it. So that's not most people, but that's still some people. So you really want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is current, up to date, that you have a great professional photo and headshot on there. I think particularly when you're talking about people who have been laid off or who are job hunting, that's the first way people are going to look at you. When you go on Google and you enter someone's name, that is the first thing that'll come up. So that really has to be on point before you start putting yourself out there, whether it's for jobs or networking opportunities. That LinkedIn profile has to be stellar, and it really has to represent who you are. Of course, once you're at that point, there's a lot more that you can do with LinkedIn as far as networking. It's a great place to make connections. It's a great place to join groups and network virtually, especially in the situation we're in right now with COVID. There's so many opportunities on there to join groups that would either help your career. Maybe it's an alumni group from a college or graduate school or high school, a neighborhood group, a group that involves a hobby or a skill that you enjoy. There are lots and lots of opportunities to network through LinkedIn. And it's also a great place to showcase what you're doing because, as you're looking at getting back in the workforce, or maybe you're looking for a new opportunity, part of that is really about staying visible and top of mind to people. So the more that you can engage on LinkedIn, here's something I published, here's this interview I did with you today, whatever it might be that you can show yourself to be a thought leader, an expert, so that people are expecting content from you that's quality content, that's going to be very helpful. So I think there's a lot of things you can do with LinkedIn. We could probably hold an interview on LinkedIn. As far as the other social media forums, I think it really depends on your target audience. A lot of people are overwhelmed with social media. You don't have to be at all forums. You don't have to be good at all forums. You don't have to be on all of them actively. It really depends on what your business is or what career you're in and where your audience is. So for example, I don't know the exact stats offhand, but I think people generally realize that Facebook is sort of an older demographic than something like TikTok, or even Instagram. It doesn't mean that you won't find people on the different forums, but really think about where you're spending your time and what makes sense with the time that you have. Do you have a business that's more visual? Are you an influencer or a photographer or an artist? If you are one of those type of things, then maybe you want to think about spending more time on something like an Instagram or Pinterest, where you can show more of your work and it'll grab people's attention more when they're looking through their feed and they're looking to connect with people. Maybe you want to spend less time on something like a LinkedIn or Facebook if that's one of your fields. So you really have to consider what it is you're trying to put out there and who you're trying to connect with. I don't think you can be all things to all people. And, it's important that you realize that some forums are going to be more valuable to a job search or your career goals than others.
And I was wondering if you could speak to informal networking. There are some people that, as I mentioned, have been out of the workforce for a long time or are trying to re-enter after being laid off from a COVID economy. Where do they start to meet these people that they can network with?
I definitely think that it's not necessary to kind of join these formal networking events if that's not something that appeals to you, or if you are introverted or just getting back into networking and you're uncomfortable with it. For example, things like a business card exchange, even online those are going on, or maybe a Chamber of Commerce event. Love Chambers of Commerce, nothing against them, but that's more of a traditional kind of business networking type of event. Or maybe it's a networking organization. There's some people that don't necessarily feel at ease with events like that, and it's understandable. I think that as time goes on and they practice more, maybe they will be more comfortable with those things. But to me, people forget about everything that they're already doing. There's so many things that we do in our daily lives, even during these COVID times, that we can utilize as networking opportunities. So think about the things in your life you're already doing. Are you involved in a running group? A cooking class? Are you involved with your church, synagogue, or another kind of religious institution where you encounter people all the time? Do you go to a hairdresser? Somebody like a hairdresser is actually a great person to network with because they come in contact with people from every walk of life. So what are you doing in your life that you're already involved with? About a year into this now, I guess a little more than a year into this, a lot of what we were involved in person has moved online. Maybe you have a group that you do virtual wine tastings with, or another group that you're involved with, it's Toastmasters, where you try to improve your speaking. Whatever it is, those are networking opportunities. And it doesn't have to be business related to be a networking opportunity. But what I will say is, for those of you that are out there that have either been laid off or you're in transition, or maybe you're trying to get into a new career field, don't assume that people know what you're looking for. You really put yourself out there. So all of those people in your life who already like and trust you that you're dealing with in all of these groups and organizations and churches and whatever it is, parent, teacher, whatever, all of that stuff. You need to tell them, I'm actually looking for a job. I'm looking for a job, let's say in marketing or advertising. And I would appreciate any introductions or anybody in your network you think I should talk to. Sometimes I think people feel uncomfortable putting that out there. I lost my job. I'm in transition. I'm trying to change career fields. I was laid off. I was fired, whatever it is. I think people are uncomfortable with that, and you need as much as you can to get comfortable with it so that you can make those asks to people that really truly want to help you and make those introductions, but they can't read your mind. So, make sure that when you're encountering all these people in your life and trying to do that informal networking, you're telling people, I'm looking for my next opportunity. This is what I'm looking for specifically. These are the type of things that would be a good fit for me. You need to tell people so that they can help you.
I think that specificity is so important, because if you network and try to arrange a meeting and then the specificity is not there, there's not much help the person can provide.
No, a lot of times people will just send these blanket, let's say, emails out to their family and friends and say, hey, family and friends, I lost my job. If you know anybody I should talk to, that would be great. And people want to help you, but usually about 10 follow-up questions. Well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for what field are you looking for? Are you looking for a full-time job, part-time job? Are you looking for a job with travel, without travel? Are you looking for a corporate job, non-corporate? There's so many questions. So the more specific you can be with people about what you're looking for, the better off you'll be.
And can you recommend any networking sites for women?
Yeah, so there's actually a site that a friend of mine is involved with that I think is great called Après, and it specifically deals with women who are trying to re-enter the workforce, and it has a lot of great resources and jobs. So I would definitely recommend that. And I would say there's definitely some organizations that I'm involved with and I'm involved with over the years for women that I think would also be great. One is Power of Professional Women, and another one is Elevate. And then a third one would be the Society for Professional Women, which is an arm of the mainline Chamber of Commerce. So all of those would be great as far as women's networking. What I also really love about, I think all of them at this point, is that, since this virtual networking can be tough, what they've been doing is doing breakout rooms, which I'm sure a lot of listeners have already encountered, last year. But when you put in breakout rooms, let's say you attend a virtual networking event that's 150 people and there's not really that opportunity to interact. Sometimes you're not even seeing people's face on the screen. Maybe you're seeing names. That can be really tough from a networking standpoint. Maybe you see people that you know or you want to talk to, but there's not really an opportunity to engage. Those breakout rooms are so imperative because usually you're put in rooms with less than 10 people. Sometimes the breakout enables you to join with somebody one-on-one. So as you're in those breakout rooms, really try to connect with people. Also gather their follow-up contact information. I'm sure some of you already experience when you do go into those breakout rooms, sometimes it's really quick. Maybe you're in there for 3-4 minutes and you'll start seeing a countdown on the screen that says, you're going to be kicked out of this breakout room in, 20, 19, 18. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't even get the contact information. So make sure you're exchanging contact information with people so that you can then do the follow-up. And follow-up is I can't tell you how important follow-up is, how many people, more than 95% of people who network don't follow up. So even when people have had a nice encounter, they just don't follow up. And I'm sure there's all kinds of reasons. People are busy, they don't know what to say. There's so many things that we could discuss as far as follow-up. I know, our interview isn't all about that, but definitely follow up with people. Make sure you're connecting with them on LinkedIn, and make sure if it's somebody that you really want to further a relationship with or that could create professional contact for you, that you're setting that next meeting, that next one-on-one, the next phone call, whatever that may be. Use those breakout rooms in the networking forums as an opportunity to build your network during this time.
And is follow-up okay with email or a LinkedIn message? It doesn't have to be a mailed card.
It doesn't have to be a mailed card. I would say at a minimum, you should link in with people that you're connecting with. And again, I think the follow-up goes to what I said earlier. You might want to ask people what their preferred method is. I know for me, and I know I'm not alone in this, I am zoomed out, right? I mean, this is over a year in. I like being with people. I speak for a living. I like being in front of audience. The Zoom does not have the same appeal to me that it did, a year ago. So ask people, would you prefer to do a virtual meeting or would you prefer a call instead? I guarantee you some people at this point would say, you know what, I do 10 Zoom meetings a day and why don't we just have an old-fashioned phone call? And so give that opportunity to people so that they're more excited to talk to you. I personally love sending out handwritten cards and things that. I think that goes a long way in making an impression and distinguishing yourself. But I wouldn't say you should use that level of follow-up for everybody. If there's somebody that you've developed a great personal connection with, or that's a great potential professional contact, they should kind of get top tier follow-up. So if you can send a handwritten card to a few people, I think that goes a long way. I wouldn't take the time to do that with everybody.
That's a very good point about differentiation and where to put your efforts. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your expertise and experience with us today. To learn more, Jennifer's website is purposefulnetworking.com. And you can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at RUNetworked. Thank you for watching Women Speak. I look forward to bringing you more in-depth conversations in future episodes. For more information about WRC's programs and services, please visit womensresourcecenter.net.